This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We're excited to have our next guest speaker on today. Her name is Carol Michaels. Carol is also a Jersey girl, and she was recommended to us by someone in the community, and we were really excited to have her join us because there's been a lot of talk about how we can build muscle. You know, our challenge this month was how we can move our body and build muscle, which was really cool to see everyone sharing how they were exercising and using their bones, I guess you could say, and muscles for the month of August. So Carol is the founder of the Recovery Fitness Exercise Program and is an award-winning exercise specialist, nationally recognized presenter, and a consultant. She's the author of Exercise for Cancer Survivors and the creator of the continuing education course in partnership with the National Federation of Professional Trainers. Carol was the 2012 PFP Trainer of the Year and the 2016 Idea Fitness Personal Trainer of the Year. She's published in numerous magazines, newsletters, blogs.
So much for having me. I'm so glad to be here to talk to everybody about how they can build more muscle and build bone and just generally stay healthy. So, you know, many of us know that we need to do aerobic exercise. We need to walk, get the heart rate up. But a lot of us don't really know about strength training, or some of us do strength training, but we don't really know all the benefits that they're getting from strength training. So, you know, I'd like to, let you know why and give you motivation to start strength training, to build muscle, and to continue are already doing some strength training. So, you know, I've been working with people for decades, and, you know, they come to me telling me what they're doing. They're gaining weight every year, and they're doing a lot of aerobic exercise. Once they start adding strength training to their routine, they just start to feel better, they feel stronger, and they start to have better weight control. So I don't think a lot of people realize that muscle is metabolically active. So the more muscle we have, that's going to help our metabolism, and that's going to help us keep our weight under control. So that in itself is usually a motivating reason for people to start adding some muscle, start strength training. So how great is it if you don't really, need to go on one of those fad diets and control your weight through exercise? Exercise certainly is medicine. So we also want to strength train because we start to actually lose our balance as we get into middle age. If we don't keep our muscles strong, our balance will deteriorate. Balance is very complicated. It's actually comprised of so many functions of the body, our sight, our hearing, but something that we can control is keeping a strong core and strong legs. That will help our balance. When we meet with our clients, we do a balance assessment. A lot of people feel like their balance is good because they can actually stand on one leg for 10 seconds or 30 seconds. And that's a great start if you can do that. But, or they might be able to do a certain yoga pose, tree pose, and just hold it for a minute. But nobody ever falls in tree pose or standing on one leg. It's when we are walking or doing something and we get distracted. For example, we might be walking our dog and someone calls us, or we pick up our phone, we turn our head, and that's when a lot of falls occur. So we want to do exercises that try to simulate our activities of what we're doing in daily life. So we train ourselves. If we are in that situation, we have muscle memory to prevent ourselves from falling. Another reason that we need to build muscle is that if our muscles get weak, our posture is going to deteriorate. And posture is a big problem right now. And a lot of that is due to technology. You know, all the things that we thought would make our lives better, which they do to some, in some circumstances, can actually hurt our health. Basically, we, someone isn't muted.
Carol, if you can mute your mic, that'd be helpful. Go ahead, Carol.
Okay. Am I coming through okay now? All right. So with posture, we're sitting too much. Actually, we don't even have to leave our house sometimes. We can call in our groceries, call in our food. We don't even have to go food shopping. There's too much sitting. To make it worse with our posture, to make it that really causes a big problem is all the texting with the head forward, all the computer use, and even at a young age, we're seeing people with what we call text neck. Even middle schoolers have a rounded neck and upper back called kyphosis. So because posture is such a big problem now, if we build muscle, if we strength train, if we keep our upper back strong, that will keep our shoulders back. Once the upper back gets weak, that causes the shoulders, well, that's not the only cause, but that does not help keeping our posture the way it should. We also need to add, of course, stretching. If we stretch the chest, the pectorals, and the front of the shoulders, it will help us have good posture. And good posture means ears over the shoulders. Once we start rounding forward, it's time to really do some strength training and get that upper back strengthened. So we also want to strength train in order to be functionally fit. Functional fitness is really the most, really one of the most important, really new buzzwords, actually not that new, in fitness, meaning being strong in order to do our activities of daily living. We want to be able to travel and perhaps lift our suitcase up onto the rack. We want to be able to participate in sports. And if we're not functionally fit, using our body the way we need to in whatever activity we want to do, you know, it's not a good thing. Not a good thing. So we want to do exercises that are smart and practical and allow us to do activities of daily living. So another important reason to strength train is that there are numerous studies out there which show that it can decrease the risk of disease, many diseases. First of all, if it keeps our weight under control, that's going to help us decrease our risk of diabetes. And there's definitely a correlation between exercise and decreasing cancer and decreasing the risk of recurrence. The other disease that I'm going to go into in a little detail is osteoporosis, because that clearly the risk can be decreased through the right exercise, and that includes strength training. So some people don't know what osteoporosis is. All it is a loss of bone density. You might hear the term osteopenia, and that is just a precursor to osteoporosis. So if you go to a doctor and they tell you you have osteopenia, sort of a wake-up call to really improve your nutrition, decrease stress, and add exercise, strength training in particular. Osteoporosis is not an old person's disease. Some people think, oh, it's just for an old person, but people can get it at any age, 30s, 40s, and it really becomes, really increases after menopause, because after menopause, we have less estrogen, and our bones need estrogen to stay strong. The best thing we can do is to start exercising, start strength training when we're younger, before menopause. It becomes like a bank. So we fill up our bones, make them really dense when we're younger, so that when we do go into menopause and lose estrogen, our bones are really dense. So if we do lose a little density, that's okay. We won't go into osteoporosis. So I always recommend to all my clients, if they have children, grandchildren, start young. So you start at a good level. So when you lose it, it's not a terrible thing. So who's at risk for osteoporosis? Unfortunately, right now, almost 1 out of 2 women over age 50 either has osteopenia or osteoporosis. And some factors really cannot be changed. For example, genetics. If your mother, family member, close member has osteoporosis, there's a good chance, that there's a genetic component, and that you might increase your risk of having it. But some things can be changed, and a lot of medications that people are currently taking for different things, for example, for acid reflux, and many of the very common prescriptions that were given, do cause loss of bone. So it's very important, to discuss these things, with your doctor, and make sure that, you're not taking something that's going to affect your bones. It's sort of a trade-off to be discussed with your medical professional. So if you do have osteoporosis, how should you exercise? What should you do? What shouldn't you do? First of all, you would need to do weight-bearing exercise, and that's basically is your walking, dancing, whatever you like to do that's on your feet. You want to do stress reduction, because when we are stressed, we exude cortisol, and cortisol is really bad for our bones. So stress reduction is important. And then what all the studies have confirmed is that strength training really helps our bones. And it's the type of exercise where the muscle actually tugs on the bone. That stimulates the bone, that stimulates the osteoblasts to do their job and make the bone denser. So there's some strength training exercises that are better than others, where you get that direct tugging on the bone. You should do this 2 to 3 times a week. You should do, as a new exerciser, you would do 1 set of 10 repetitions of an exercise. Once you're able to do that, you would add another set of 10. Detail a little later. The equipment that we use for our home osteoporosis exercise classes, they are very easy to purchase. The equipment is very, very inexpensive. So, for example, we recommend that everybody have dumbbells or hand weights, and it's important to have them in all different weights. So for example, you don't want to just have a 5-pound weight, because once you can do those 2 sets of 10 repetitions and it becomes easy for you, then you want to go up in weight. So you just don't want to have, for example, 5 pounds. You would go maybe 5 pound to a 6 or 7 pound. When that becomes easier, go up again. The goal is to use the heaviest weight that you can safely. You don't want to just stick with light weights unless your or health professional tells you there's some reason you could have a pre-existing condition. There's also, when we do certain exercises, some of our basic exercises, for example, a row, a one-arm row, that's a upper back exercise. There's certain ways of doing it. You can do a row where you're basically just using your bicep muscle. You can also do a row if you concentrate on making it an upper back exercise, using your upper back to originate the exercise. So a lot of times with exercise for osteoporosis, it's not so much the actual exercise, it's how you do the exercise you have to have a lot of concentration and put your mind into the area that you're really trying to strengthen. So besides a variety of hand weights, it's also important to have resistance bands, the flat band and the ones with handles. The tubing with the handle is wonderful because it's very comfortable to hold on to. We do a lot of exercises with the tubing or the resistance band attached to either your foot, or we take the tubing, wrap it around an anchor point, so then we can actually have the handle to pull back on, allowing us to do a lot of exercises to strengthen our upper back. And with osteoporosis, a lot of times we develop vertebral fractures, so we want to keep a really strong, all the muscles strong around the spine. We concentrate on a lot of abdominal and spine exercises because what we want to do is keep the muscles strong around the spine, so that creates a girdle of sorts for the vertebra to keep the vertebra in line. And that's important for anyone, for people with osteoporosis or without. And so many people, unfortunately, today do have bad backs. If you do the right exercises, not just abdominals, back exercises too, so you can protect your spine. So the other exercise equipment that we use besides those flat bands are the little mini bands or loop bands. And by using the mini bands, you can do a lot of fabulous hip exercises. For balance, the discs are used. We place the balance disc, they're also called gliders, sliders, under 1 foot, not under 2 feet, because if you have osteoporosis, you need to exercise safely. So we use it under one leg, so the other foot is stable on the floor. And this way, we can do exercises where we're sliding the leg in all different directions. That would simulate, for example, if you're walking on snow or ice or mud and your foot slides out. So, a lot of people fall on ice or mud or on a puddle. Their leg falls out to the side, they fall over, they might break a hip. But if you train yourself with the gliders to be able to slide out and back in, that's going to decrease your risk of falling. And our goal, if you have weak bones, balance exercises are crucial. So we just want to decrease our risk of falling. And we also use, if you remember, step aerobics, like a small 4 or 6-inch step. The reason we use that now is because, and we're not doing any of those complicated step aerobic dances. They're strength training exercises using the step. There was a study done out of Australia a number of years ago which showed that impact exercises stimulate the bones. And we try to get some gentle impact. We don't want to jump off of a high step and risk hurting the bone, but just a little force through the bone. It's the force through the bone which stimulates the bone to get denser. So we do some strength training on the step. And the last thing is the large exercise ball. That might be the best investment anyone can make for about $20. You get that large ball, and it enables you to do hundreds of strength training exercises. And it might be the best way to do some back strengthening, because it enables you to do what we call back extension. Extension means like going this way, which is proven to be one of the better ways to strengthen the spine. So with osteoporosis, what should you not do? Let's say your bones are not very strong. Is there anything you shouldn't do? What is contraindicated is forward bending. So you don't want to do anything where you're actually leaning forward, perhaps just going right down to tie a shoelace, or doing a sit-up or a crunch. Any type of forward bending is not safe for the bone, because the anterior part of the bone of the spine is soft, and that can cause a compression fracture. So if you can't do sit-ups and you can't do crunches, a lot of people think, well, what can I do? Because I usually do crunches. So you can do, once again, probably hundreds of excellent abdominal exercises without going into forward flexion, by keeping the head down while you exercise and moving the legs. Or you can do various plank and variations on planks. As for Pilates, which is an excellent system, which I teach and love, but a lot of the exercises are not safe, because the head, everything is up off the floor in forward flexion. But we show everyone how to modify Pilates to make it safe.
I have a question, Carol. So when you say, I thought that was a really good point. So when you're doing something just to bend over to tie your shoe, if you're using your back just to bend over, you're at risk of a fracture. So would you recommend for something like that to get almost like squat and bend your knees to help which is more like, I guess, works on your mobility?
Okay, so let's say you have to tie your shoe. And what we teach everybody is you have to try to do all your activities with a hip hinge. So the hip hinge, basically we have a soft knee. We hinge from the hip, keeping the spine straight. In fact, oh, good, I have my stick over here. One of the first things we teach people in an osteoporosis exercise class is to keep the spine straight, meaning your head, upper back, and tailbone are on the stick. Once you start going like this and your head drops off, that's a rounding, that would cause a rounding of the back. So we do everything with a hip hinge, and if something's really low to the floor, a knee bend. We try to do it the best you can, but you really, you can very easily fracture by doing that. In fact, sometimes people have been known to do a very aggressive sneeze, where they go like this and they lean forward and they're like, oh, my back, and they actually self-fracture because the two vertebrae, you know, they're just, you know, as we get older, we lose the cushion in between the vertebra, and the vertebrae touch each other and can cause a little compression fracture. A lot of times people don't even know they have that. You probably have seen people with the extreme rounded back, the Dowager's hump, where they're completely folded over. And that's usually due to just so many of these little compression fractures that they might not even known that they've had. And as they heal, they just also like have like extra bone develops on top of them, causing that hump. So it's all about prevention, and all of this a lot of times can be prevented through exercise. And that's why I'm just so passionate about this and getting the information out, because if you can prevent all of the issues that come along with osteoporosis, and by preventing osteoporosis, you can prevent, hopefully, taking the medications, which so often have a lot of side effects. Whenever you can do something naturally, it's a good thing.
So Jill has a good question talking back about like the hump that you had mentioned. She said, can spine hunching be reversed with strength training? Are there special exercise precautions recommended for people who have a hunched posture when getting started with strength training?
So, you know, if you already have a hunched posture, kyphosis, a lot of times it depends on the severity of it, but we've improved people's posture significantly. And a lot of it depends on, first of all, not just what you do in the exercise class or the physical therapy, it's what you do the other 23 hours. So for example, you know, if they're, you know, working, and if they're in my class and they're doing great, and they go around and look at their phone all day hunched over, or on the computer, or are sitting for their meals in bad posture, they're not going to get good results. So it's how you carry yourself the rest of the day. But, you know, assuming you're doing that right, by strengthening that upper back and doing all of the appropriate exercises and some of the stretches, because as I mentioned earlier, sometimes the tightness here exacerbates the kyphosis. So you can reverse bad posture. You have to be consistent. You can't do the exercises once a week. You have to be consistent and think about it throughout the day. You know, I should also really just mention that with osteoporosis, and actually even if you just have, you know, a bad back, which sadly seems like every other person has after a certain age, you want to really think about what you do in terms of how you lift things, how you take things, let's say you go grocery shopping, how do you take the things out of your trunk? Are you doing it with that hip hinge, as I mentioned, or are you doing it, you know, just with your head down, with the back rounded, lifting something heavy? How are you brushing your teeth? Are you brushing your teeth with a nice straight spine, or is your back rounded with your head hanging over into the sink? So if you do have osteoporosis, think about all the things that you do during the day and try to just start to make some modifications. Start to think about keeping the spine straight, and make your modifications. Modifications also apply to yoga. Yoga, a wonderful exercise system, but the extreme twists that we have in yoga are not safe. If you think about the spine, and if the bones are weak and you're, you know, twisting, there's a good chance that the bones will start touching each other and self-fracturing. So if you do participate in yoga, which is a great system, you know, tell your instructor that you do have osteoporosis, have them make the modifications for you so you can participate in a wonderful exercise system, but do make the modifications.
Oh, great. Okay. Let's see. Mary Lou wants to know, what do you think about vibration plates?
Ah, good question. Very, very controversial. I wish I could say I love them, because like, how great would that be to stand on a vibration plate and have your bone density improve? It's very controversial, and this is my opinion. I've been working with people for decades, some of whom have tried and bought very expensive vibration plates, and they have not helped their bone density. Now, you will read studies and articles saying how they help, but you have to realize, are the people who are using them, is it because they added strength training? Are they on medication? Are they on strontium? So it's a very complicated thing. It can't hurt, although it actually can hurt if the vibration plate is going full speed ahead. Some people have had some issues with that. But you have to go with your health or medical professional on that. My clients that I've worked with have not had good results solely from vibration plates.
Okay.
So you should strength train, and this applies to anyone with or without osteoporosis, 2 to 3 times a week. And it doesn't have to be for very long. Usually you can get everything in about 30 to 45 minutes. You just want to make sure to hit every major muscle group. A lot of people feel like they want to have, good looking abs, six-pack abs, and they'll just really focus on abdominals. And you want to also, but that would create imbalances, because then you can't exercise one area and not the other. So you want to make sure to hit every major muscle group equally, so you get stronger and you don't create imbalances. And I do recommend varying the exercises. I would never want anyone to do the same 10 exercises. Sometimes, that people do a squat, a plank, the real basic ones. And that's why people stop exercising. It gets so boring. And it's also not, as I mentioned earlier, functional fitness, moving your body the way you do in everyday life. So in my program, we do a lot of what we call compound exercises, where perhaps we're exercising the lower body, maybe doing a squat, but also using a hand weight and going maybe into a bicep curl, the way you might have to lift something off of the floor. But 2 to 3 times a week, 30 to 40 minutes each time would be wonderful.
Great. And now you mentioned your program, Carol. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Is that online, and do you do virtual assessments, one-on-one coaching with clients?
So I do one-on-one, virtual and in person, if anybody is in my area in New Jersey or Florida. But all of the small group live virtual classes are offered Monday through Friday, and it's proven to be very effective. We started going virtual, as most people did during COVID, and I really at first thought, like, how can this really work? But the way I have everything set up with a blown up screen, I can see everybody perfectly. If if someone is not in good form and I'm really into perfect technique, I'll contact them, and then we just work for a few minutes complimentary on a FaceTime or a Zoom. And it's great because they pick up very inexpensive pieces of equipment, the ones that I mentioned earlier in the talk, and quite a few people have been able to improve their bone density without medication. So it's a real, one thing that's happened with osteoporosis and the epidemic, I really call it an epidemic of osteoporosis now for women over 50, but I should add that men also get osteoporosis, women and men in particular, especially if they're on any hormonal therapy for various cancers. But I forgot what I was, where I was going.
The best, you were saying, the best are popular.
Yes. So, and sadly, there's a lot of companies and people really taking advantage of the insecurities that people have with osteoporosis and pushing a lot of very expensive things that, aren't necessarily medically proven. One of those are the weighted vests. And I can understand the reason for that, because you do want, weight bearing force through the bone, so I can see why, okay, wear, 10, 20-pound vest, kind of, I can see where that came from. Unfortunately, all the people that I know that have worn them have only developed foot, knee, hip problems because of that extra weight that they have on their body when they're walking. So I feel like, why ruin a beautiful thing like a walk or a hike with 20 pounds on your back? Why take away the beauty and joy of a walk by lugging a vest on? So it just seems very unnatural. And you'll hear a lot of people advocating for the vest. Again, in my experience of decades of working with people, it has not been effective. I wish I could say, oh yeah, it's going to make everything better, but we haven't
Yeah,
seen.
that's such a good point about the weighted vest. And unless they're training for something where that's going to make them faster, I like your idea of like, why ruin a beautiful walk if it's going to hurt your body in a sense.
And also, if you think of your back, if your bones are brittle in your spine, and then you have, for let's say you're going out for an hour walk and you have that extra pressure on your back, logically, it just really doesn't make sense to me.
We've got a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. So Jill said, at what age should we start getting bone density tests, and how often should we repeat this test?
That is my favorite question. So right now, if you go for your regular checkup, typically you're not going to get a bone density test till age 65. And I've really been advocating to get that change, because people turn 65 and then they find out, oh, I have weak bones, I have osteoporosis, and would have known maybe they had osteopenia or were losing bone density at an earlier age, they could have perhaps prevented this. So I really would love to have everyone get a bone density test, perhaps even before you go into menopause, whenever that might be, maybe 50, 55, and then get one right after you go into menopause. You would have a baseline. So this way, let's say you're age 55 or 50 and you get a bone density test and it shows you are starting to lose density, you can then start really thinking about what are you eating, how are you sleeping, are you exercising properly, and prevent osteopenia from going into osteoporosis. So I would recommend, if you can, get a bone density test in your 50s, maybe in your 40s, if you've been taking steroids and various medications which increase your risk of osteoporosis. Unfortunately, you probably have to pay out of pocket, but I think it would be money worth the while spending.
Good to know. Leslie says, do you have any dietary suggestions for building muscle? I've heard that protein is important. And, we'll actually, Leslie, that's a good question. We're having on another guest speaker who Carol knows. I'm not sure if you were on earlier, next month. And she's going to talk a little bit about that. But Carol, if you have any, food recommendations for helping to build muscle, since that was, we are talking about building muscle, that would be helpful, I think.
Right. So, my expertise, is exercise, and I stick to exercise because it's all research based, and the work that I do is all based on research. With some of the information for eating for osteoporosis, some of it is not quite black and white, but in terms of building muscle, you should add protein, especially as you get older. You definitely need to have more protein. And then generally, just common sense eating, just more natural, not processed foods. But I think I'll leave it at there, but definitely increasing protein, increase your protein for building muscle.
Great. All right, Andrea, do you have any more questions for Carol? And I have like pages already I've taken of notes here, Carol. And so what we'll do is when we send out this recording, we're gonna put in like all of your recommendations, maybe some links to some of the tools that you recommended earlier on, and ways that people can connect with you. But Andrea, anything else that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I wanted to share that something that Carol said earlier. She said that osteoporosis is not just for the elders, right? It comes at younger and younger ages. And I'm also seeing that in my practice. I'm seeing 30-year-olds with osteoporosis, not even osteopenia, osteoporosis. So I think that it's very important, to exactly what she said. This is the people on the phone with the computer all day long like this, not nourishing themselves, not working their bodies, not eating well, the whole entire picture. The whole thing is contributing, and the high stress, all of it's contributing to bone loss at younger and younger ages. So I think that Carol's work is really needed in the world, right? To help people rebuild their strength, to hold on to their mass so they can keep their bones for the whole time that they're here.
Yes, and just awareness, just being more aware of osteoporosis, because people in their 30s, especially people who've had eating disorders, and people have had amenorrhea, people with different autoimmune celiac disease, you just can't absorb the nutrients. So just to make people aware that if they're on certain medications or they've had some autoimmunes or other conditions, that's going to increase their risk of osteoporosis. So they should start thinking about these things, as you said, even in their 30s.
Great, yeah. I gotta start getting checked out. I'm that perfect case, right, Andrea? I'm always on my phone. I'm chasing after little kids, humped over. So yeah, even when you were talking, Carol, I loved your idea of just kind of opening up your chest, and as Andrea would say, because that's what enabling my third chakra, right, Andrea? So that's kind of like a win-win, opening your core chakra. I'm sorry. So it's, yeah.
What happens with people who are very kyphotic, very hunched over, sadly, they always feel tired all the time. And even with the younger people, because what happens is you're hunched over, you don't have enough room for your lungs to expand fully because you're just curved over. It also causes early arthritis to the neck and neck pain and just so many issues. So, sadly, in this day and age with technology, it's causing a lot of problems. So all the physical therapists that I know say that probably half the people that they work with, are just people that they're seeing, due to just having bad body mechanics, bad posture, and just sitting all day.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I think we learned a lot from Carol. So if you want, you can always refer back to this recording. We'll probably set it out later. And Carol, thank you so much for joining us today. We learned so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure, and one of my goals in life just to make people aware of the importance of strength training. So I appreciate being on. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, even just the feedback, we're getting excellent presentation and discussion. Thank you so much. So a lot of the members are chiming in right now, thanking you too. So, all right. Take care, everybody. Speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.